I was thinking we can start off with your observations of cyber threats, because from what we are seeing is that they are increasing in terms of sophistication and frequency, but you might have better insights when looking at it from a business perspective.
Absolutely, Ruwandi. And it's an interesting segue as much as we talk about data protection. Cybersecurity is at the topmost of the issues that we're facing even as a country right now. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations are not putting sufficient onus in terms of ensuring that they have the right posture, in terms of ensuring that their data, their people, as well as their infrastructure is protected. Yes, some organizations are coming back to working from office, but the reality is when you start accessing systems across very many environments, your threat landscape increases. So cybersecurity is at the forefront in terms of ensuring that your data security and your data rigor is well kept intact with the right steps taken.
AI making it better or worse?
It's both aspects. If you really look at it, yes, AI has enabled a lot of ransomware today as we speak. The latest report says that it can run 36,000 scans per minute.
Wow.
Right, on systems. You of course cannot use traditional systems against these AI-driven attacks anymore. Today is heading towards how can you fortify your radar so that you can anticipate attacks. So that's where things are heading away, and there's a lot of new technology coming in, and that's the most important part, that organizations has to be cognizant of these trends and ensuring that AI is also adapted to ensure that AI-driven attacks are also mitigated.
Yes, we have the big companies, but the majority of our businesses are SME. Where can they strike a balance?
There are certain aspects even a SME or a startup can do by ensuring that there are certain basic discipline that is brought in. So awareness, I would say, would sort 80% of major issues coming in, because you can have the best of technologies, but it's social engineering at the end of the day.
Cyber threats are on the rise, and data protection is more crucial than ever before. We spoke about all of this and more with Oshada Senanayake. Stay tuned.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is data protection, and I'm here with Oshada Senanayake, who is the Group ICT and Digital Director of Brandix, Lanka. Welcome to our show, Oshada.
Good to be here, Ruwandi.
Lovely to have you. To start off, it's a vast topic, but I was thinking we can start off with your observations of cyber threats, because from what we are seeing is that they are increasing in terms of sophistication and frequency, but you might have better insights when looking at it from a business perspective.
Absolutely, Ruwandi. And it's an interesting segue as much as we talk about data protection. Cybersecurity is at the topmost of the issues that we're facing even as a country right now. And as opposed to what people think, that these are heavily armed hackers coming in and stealing your credentials to making intrusions on systems, it's simply emails, phishing emails that people get caught out to and actually give the credentials out. And in fact, there's over 4 billion emails as spam that goes in per day that is completely focused on taking these credentials out, and that's the culmination of a lot of these cybersecurity fronts. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations are not putting sufficient onus in terms of ensuring that they have the right posture, in terms of ensuring that their data, their people, as well as their infrastructure is protected. Currently, it's a major issue, specifically after post-pandemic, where a lot of aspects has been digitalized. The concept of work from home is prevalent today. Yes, some organizations are coming back to working from office, but the reality is when you start accessing systems across very many environments, your threat landscape increases. So cybersecurity is at the forefront in terms of ensuring that your data security and your data rigor is well kept intact with the right steps taken.
Wow. Is this might sound like a naive question, but is AI making it better or worse?
It's making it better and worse. It's both aspects. If you really look at it, yes, AI has enabled a lot of ransomware today as we speak. The latest report says that it can run 36,000 scans per minute,
Wow.
right, on systems. But here's the positive side of it. You can also use AI to mitigate these attacks. So it's AI against AI that you need to use.
Yeah.
You, of course, cannot use traditional systems against these AI-driven attacks anymore. So it's moving out from a perspective of where you build major walls around the organization in terms of firewalls and different other security systems. Today it's heading towards how can you fortify your radar so that you can anticipate attacks. So that's where the trend is moving from a point of assuming breach to predicting and taking action on potential breaches. So that's where things are heading away, and there's a lot of new technology coming in, and that's the most important part, that organizations has to be cognizant of these trends.
Yeah.
And ensuring that AI is also adapted to ensure that AI driven attacks are also mitigated.
And when it comes to Sri Lanka, I mean, yes, we have the big companies, but the majority of our businesses are SME, and we've seen that they don't really, I mean, forget about AI, they don't really think of data protection of any sort because they have limitations in terms of like awareness and even resources. Where can they strike a balance?
Interesting point, Ruwandi. See, rather than overly complicating this issue, there are certain aspects even SME or a startup can do by ensuring that there are certain basic discipline that is brought in. For example, awareness in terms of cyber security across your team members or your organization. That goes a long way. Take, for example, my example of phishing emails. Awareness can go a long way in ensuring that they don't click through on certain spam or phishing mails that comes in. Today it's called spear phishing. It has got so advanced that it can specifically target you with your name and your designation and coerce your other team members, saying that, for example, it can spoof a CFO and say, look, can you transfer certain funds? It can spoof the email as well, right? How does it do it? It first ensures that it penetrates into the CFO's accounts by ensuring the CFO is vulnerable. So awareness, I would say, would sort 80% of major issues coming in, because you can have the best of technologies, but
Yeah.
it's social engineering at the end of the day. And it's people at the center of cybersecurity. So awareness is one thing, whether you are SME or whether you are a startup. It wouldn't take much of resources as people perceive to do that. It's just knowledge that comes in and ensuring that basic governance is put in place. Second aspect is technology, accessibility to good technology. The cost is also coming down. There are certain systems that you can ensure that you can have. For example, cloud systems. If you move your systems from a self-managed data center or servers, as you call it,
Yeah.
to cloud, there's a lot of managed services you can bring in, right? And the cost could also be lower. Perception again is, look, if I go to the cloud, would my cost footprint go up? But if your systems are designed in such a way, actually cloud computing can bring down your cost as well, where you can reinvest back in terms of your cybersecurity rigor for that matter. So that's where even the SMEs and the startups can get a lot of momentum by getting right subject matter experts, tapping into certain forums. And there's a lot in Sri Lanka that you can tap into as well. And I would say you have to bootstrap this approach without overcomplicating it.
And talking about simplifying, is language a barrier? Because we do find that a lot of, I mean, Sinhala and Tamil are being used in terms of language in tech, but still it is a very rare kind of cases there. But how will this help or hinder us?
Rande, I think more than the language barrier, it's the digital literacy, the digital divide. I think there's a lot more that has to be done in terms of increasing our digital literacy across the country. And that's where I think the core focus has to be. Of course, there are certain aspects, the language could be a certain issue.
Yeah.
But for technology, I would think of it as lesser evil than having the digital literacy component coming in a serious way, because people doesn't comprehend how impactful their decisions are in terms of whether it's technology, where they're putting their data, when they're procuring softwares, for example. Do you ask the right questions from your suppliers to ensure that those systems are robust? So more so than language, I would say the biggest concern is the digital literacy.
I want to talk about digital literacy among the masses a little later, but talking about data protection per se, since we are in the spam of organizations, when you take different types of companies, in terms of awareness, resources, and also leadership initiatives, how do you think Sri Lanka corporate sector is faring?
In terms of data protection?
Data protection.
Particular?
Yes.
I think it's a new adage for all organizations. Of course, GDPR came through to the European Union front. I mean, they were the first at this. But from 2022, from the inception of the act, there's been conversations around. And there are certain organizations with the wherewithal, they've taken certain proactive steps. There has been certain forums, there has been discussions that's been going around, but not enough, I would say. Just quite recently, a couple of weeks back, the amendments was done up. So the Data Protection Authority is not there just to enact the act, but they will have to also ensure that there's this awareness and access to the right information and knowledge to ensure that the data protection obligations are kept by the organization. So, but the positive front, I've seen quite a few experts coming through the system who are aware of the Data Protection Act, but moreover the principles of data protection, which is, as you said again, cybersecurity, information security, data protection, data security. Then there's the concept of privacy by design on the systems itself.
Right.
Then also reporting governance. So there are subject matter experts that has come through, but I think it will have to get more momentum. We'll have to create more velocity to ensure that we have sufficient experts to handhold these organizations as we go into that front. But I think major organizations have started the journey.
Right.
Simple steps of see, the whole pretext of this is consent driven.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, you are having your personally identified information. How is the data governed? And that's a very important thing that this act is driving forward, because there was no accountability in terms of managing citizens' personally identifiable information. That could become a name, a EPF number, address, mobile number. It's all PIIs as we call it.
Right.
But there seems to be a lot of initiative that's being created. For example, like appointing a data protection officer, right? And that's a very simple step that could be taken. But the broader impact point is, what is the role of a data protection officer? It's not
To define
just,
that.
exactly. It's not. It shouldn't be just a name on a website. There's a broader responsibility for a data protection officer in terms of creating that culture within an organization that data protection and information security is at the epicenter of all decision making, and that has to be sponsored by the leadership itself. And that's why I always say a data protection officer has to report to the topmost layers of an organization, whether it's a listed organization or whether it's a SME or even a startup. And that role could be taken by anybody, literally, who has a nuance of data protection as well as a bit of technology as well. So it doesn't have to be a legal expert itself.
Yeah.
Right now, for example, HR systems are having the most amount of personally identifiable information. So why not HR director, for example? But it can't be a IT expert, because there's no checks and balance.
Yeah, you kind of a functional expert as well.
Exactly, because almost all of these data are all on digital systems. So I wouldn't say it should be a digital lead, but it could be any functional lead that can take it on. So steps have been taken,
Right.
but I think, as you said, this has to cascade down to the SMEs as well as the startups. SMEs are our heartbeat of the country.
The country.
The majority of organizations are there, and I think a lot more would have to be done to ensure that this cascades down. Here's the thing.
Yes.
Cost of compliance is a major issue for up and coming organizations.
Right.
Now, this cost of compliance is something that not a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I always say it has to be bootstrapped, and we shouldn't overly complicate it. And I see a lot of entities trying to overly complicate this. So I think there has to be some sort of ecosystem built to assist these SMEs without making this a burden. In fact, this is an advantage when you go out into the global front to compete. this will put our organization in very good stead in terms of attracting even potential global business.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about data protection.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with Oshada Senanayake, who is the Group ICT and Digital Director of Brandix Lanka. You said consent. I mean, you mentioned a lot of challenges that businesses are overcoming and have to overcome, before this act is properly enforced. Looking at it from the masses side, what does, do people understand what consent actually means and how can we go about it? Because consent can hinder also, because if we start saying no to everything, it might hinder businesses from providing certain services. How can we manage this?
I think, to be very upfront, Ruwandi, I think there's a lot more that has to be done to create that awareness and that thought leadership in terms of what are your rights in terms of your data.
Right.
I mean, if you walk into certain locations right now, in all good positivity, security personnel write down all the information on a particular book. That in itself is a serious matter. A person coming behind can even take a picture out of it.
Oh yeah, if you're not sure, right? Yeah.
Yep. And guess what? Even on the digital front, certain organizations, there's no opt-out.
No, if you opt out, you don't get the service.
Exactly. See, the whole point of the act is that any data subject, that's you and me, for example, or any citizen or any team member, the first right is the accessibility to their data. You can demand access to know what data, personally identifiable data, is held by any organization, whether it be public organizations or private organization. Second point is a data subject will have the right to basically request amendments if it's erroneous, data is erroneous. Then you will have a right to basically demand erasure of data if it's past a certain service period. You can't demand erase if you're an employee, and if there's statutory obligations by other acts to hold certain data, then you cannot demand that. But these basic principles has to be driven, and I think that information has to again go down to the public. And when I say the public, as you said, the common mass as well, right? If you're walking into a branch office of any organization, what information do you give, and what can you demand from them to check on how would that be, how that data could be used? So we call it a data lifecycle management, right? So if it's an organization, a lot of people think it's employee data. But what about from a point of no, even an employee, a potential employee's data is also important as much as that. I'm sending a CV. Or I'm basically uploading all my information on a job portal of a particular organization. That becomes my personal information as well. That CV will have all that information. So all organizations has to have this data lifecycle management, the data governance front. What data are we collecting from which sort of cohorts of individuals? How are we processing it? And what is the time that we need to process it? Now, if it was a candidate who wasn't successful, then at what point do you basically erase that PIIs, if at ever? So coming back to your point, I think there's a lot more that has to be done. I think it's a journey, Ruwandi. It's a journey from an organizational point of view as well as a country point of view. And I think it's a very good point that we have a very strong Data Protection Act right now. It is absolutely necessary. It was an absolute necessity as much as we go into a digital economy. Right now, what we need to do is we need to ensure there's force multipliers enacted to ensure that these rights and this awareness in terms of what this Data Protection Act is cascaded down to the critical mass or the whole of the grassroots level. Absolutely. That's very important. And that's where the language might also come in. All of these forms and all that cannot be just on English. It should be trilingual as far as we are concerned in Sri Lanka, right? So it's got to be single Tamil and English or France. And that's important. And how can people access it, right? You can't just then have just an email or a contact on a website. If it's the critical mass, there should be much more better way of getting them to access, right? So that's where I see. So it's a journey. It's a good journey that we need to start, but there'll be a lot of measured approaches that will have to be put in place to ensure that we get to that North Star.
Wow. It sounds like a lot of work right now, but I think we can always, structure it. As a final thought, Oshada, I mean, it's been such a lovely conversation, but I aware of the time as well. As a final thought, if you could highlight certain priorities that the country should look at in terms of, enabling this ecosystem, what would they be?
I think from a country perspective, the data protection authority has to be established with well-grounded and with personnel with core competencies and value systems,
Okay.
because that will define exactly how these are going to be adopted by organizations.
Yeah.
But I think we've done the hard work in terms of getting a fantastic act. I think I personally believe that act is quite strong,
Right.
and quite transparent and quite pragmatic as well. And for example, even the amendments that came in
Yeah.
has ensured that organizations are not inhibited of going into global clouds, for example. So cross-border data transformation, usage of government clouds as well as international public clouds
Okay.
are allowed.
Allowed.
So that's quite good. But in terms of organizations, what I would say is keep it basic, keep it focused, and ensure your data governance. Take a list of all of your data assets, right? And ensure which systems have this information. And if these vendor-based systems, then you need to ensure that certain obligations, legal obligations, are cascaded down to agreements to ensure that it cascades down. Because Act says data processor is the organization that collects.
Yes.
Data controller. Data processor is another party that might even give a software or even give you a business process outsourcing aspect. So those are very simple things that you can do.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is gaining consent. Organizations can start by gaining consent of the employees, making them aware of what their rights are, and gaining consent. I would say that's the way to start. And I think the DPA from a country level is moving forward. I've seen the advertisements to recruit the required personnel and getting the right institutional framework in place. So I think it's all good positive momentum that we have right now.
Lovely. And we're hoping for the best always.
Yep, always.
Thank you, Oshada.
Pleasure.
We've been in conversation with the Group ICT and Digital Director of Brandix Lanka, Oshada Senanayake. Thank you very much. Loved all the
Thank you,
insights.
Ruwandi. Pleasure to be here.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.